It's always fun when we have these little conversations because we get to actually get to know more about what these people went through rather than a canned presentation. And a lot of times it's the challenges or the mistakes and the lessons learned are actually way more interesting than the success stories that you always get at a presentation. And so it's nice that Izzy has joined us and is going to be very candid about her experiences. But first, let me ask you this one question. How did you get here?
I don't know some days. So I come from a graphic design background. I was a graphic designer for years, and I think one of the reasons I ended up in DAM was because my desk was the first one outside of the marketing director's office. And he saw me and was like, you can do that. No, so I work for a company called Megger. We're an electrical test manufacturer. So we make boxes that do things that test electrical systems, from subsea cables to lots of other things. So it's quite a technical company. I don't know anything about that side. We 5 or 6 years ago, we were very siloed, grown by acquisition. So we've got factories globally, but there wasn't any real cohesion to them. And so I think he went away to a conference and he's like, why are there 3 versions of this catalogue? Right. Because everyone was doing everything duplicated, because we didn't have that connection. We didn't have that kind of visibility of what other teams were doing, partly because of the way we were structured and because we didn't have anywhere to find things. So we said, well, if we could get the budget for it, if you can sell it to the team, then let's look at getting one of these systems. And so that's how I started in DAM, basically, was selling it to did a presentation at one of our marketing meetings and said, look, if we could get this system, would you use it? Because there's no point in having the system if they're not willing to use it. And they said, yes, please, this would be great. Because historically, if you wanted to find an image, you'd send an email to everyone you knew who was a designer and hope they hadn't left and not told you that they hadn't left and things like that. And then if people left, then you would find, the links on InDesign files, and it's like, that's so-and-so's desktop. They don't work for the company anymore. So have we lost that image? And that's where we were up until 2018 when we started our DAM.
And how old is the company?
The company is one of the our company is quite interesting because we actually go back to the birth of electricity almost. So Sidney Evershed was one of the founders of what was then Evershed and Vinyls, and he actually invented the insulation test and things like that. So we go back to our first patent was 1896 or something like that. We have some really birth of electricity basically, and the company in its various forms has existed ever since then. But we fully branded as Megger in 2002, I think. And then we've been going on a big kind of change of branding and things like that. What you see here was only actually released in 2003, which is with the triangles and these leading lines and things like that. Nice. I'm also the visual identity manager, so that's quite important to me as well. So, and actually the success of that branding has been because of the DAM, because everything's in one place. So if you want to find something, you know where your templates are, you know where images are, you can go into the images _stock and find that image or find others. So I don't think the most recent rebrand would have been anywhere near as successful without the system, that's for sure.
Well, I mean, what's interesting is this morning when we talked, when Lisa and Teresa talked about how important the process is. It's not just the technology. There's about the process, the modeling, the metadata, the governance. How did you approach that with your DAM?
So what we did was, because we had a very small set of designers and marketers actually managing quite a large subset of products, is we actually modelled it on what we already knew. So we modelled a lot of it on how our website worked, how we defined assets already. So we had clear definitions. We have product documents, and these are specific documents you have to release with every product. And then we classify things as marketing documents, your brochures, your catalogues, things like that, and then images. And we literally started with those 3 kind of product documents, marketing documents and images, and classified it like that. And then so that was our taxonomy, I guess, if you will. And then what we did with our metadata and things like that was how do we actually refer to our products and our groupings of products that we send out to the industry. And so we actually we looked at our website, to be honest with you, because if you're going to that at the end, you may as well start there. It's evolved as the company's evolved, but yeah, so we kind of started outward facing and said, well, that's how we already work. That's what we're familiar with. And so that's what we felt would be easy and intuitive for people coming into the system. It helped that I was kind of from a graphic design background. I was actually a user. I was also my own customer in a way. So, I was building a system that was going to help me and from my day job as well as other marketers and, and just, everyone in the company, hopefully. Although not everyone in the company is in our system at the moment because we love our sales guys, but they're a bit too eager and they share things that they shouldn't do. So we let them into the system via a different route, which is kind of public facing, kind of embed codes and stuff.
Well, okay, so you have the website, but what kind of assets do you have in your DAM? I mean, you have images, you have content, you have marketing collateral. Do you do animations, graphics, videos?
Yeah, so we do, a bit of everything. So most of our core content, our product documents are always in PDF format because they're relatively uneditable and things like that. There's legal ramifications in our industry for product documents as well. Every type of image, GIF, things like that. We actually do, we package up our InDesign files, so that's where we house all of our branding templates and everything. And because we can version those, so it's a good source of the truth for everyone to find your templates as well as your actual end of use content. Word docs for PR releases, everything like that. We do some video, but it's more raw working files, so the .aeps, After Effects stuff and things like that. So because you can package all of those up and have it in one place. So it's a bit of everything, to be honest with you. Yeah.
So you do catalogs for external clients or buyers, and then I would imagine that if it's a testing manufacturing company, that you also have internal, like how to turn this machine on kind of thing. I mean, so it's both internal and external facing content? So
internal is something we're working on now, and that's part of our digital customer journey because we're looking at things like knowledge bases in our digital kind of roadmap. We're on a digital experience kind of change, and we're changing a lot of platforms. So we're looking a lot more at internal sides of stuff, which would be to support support our end users, our technical specialists, our sales guys with things, content that would help them support the customer, would help them write papers, would help them create new content, but that we can't share externally. So that's something we're looking at. We're not really there yet. There's a lot of work that we need to do with regards to making sure that, making sure that it's clearly defined, that this is internal only, and actually is giving them another login to another system because we haven't implemented single sign-on yet. But giving them another login to a system, is that actually the best way for them to access that content? Because we can have it as a library, is it better for us to actually push that content to a system that they're already using? And then, so the where it sits doesn't matter as long as they can access it in somewhere that's suitable to them. And so that's where we're starting to really evolve the DAM as our part of our digital ecosystem, which is something that's we're on our journey now. So I'd like to. We're starting to look at more. We did a content audit recently, and actually what we did then, which was really cool, was we integrated some folders in Teams, in Microsoft Teams in. So what we did was I put in two folders, keep it simple, internal content, external content, and I got all of our tech support guys and our sales guys who don't normally, live within the DAM or don't normally engage with our system. They were able to kind of gather all their content that they think might be useful for their peers, and then just dump it in there, and then it would ingest it into our digital system. So now we've got it catalogued and archived, and then what we'll do is when we've got somewhere suitable to share it with everybody, that's how we're going to process it out. And actually we're looking at that system as a way of getting people to give us content without having to know what an upload profile is, know how the nuances of the system, and we'll do the metadata tagging for them, we'll do the taxonomy, making sure it goes to the right place, because to be honest with you, they've got more important things to do, which is supporting our customers and getting our name, and supporting them on their journey.
Well, how big is your team then? How many people actually do that?
There's me, and there's a lovely lady in Mumbai called Jyoti, and so yeah,
That's it, just the two of you.
Yeah, so we're the owners of the system. So you can, there's a lot to do, and that's why some of it is we're still on our journey. But what we do is we've got our marketing team and our design team are really engaged. They're great because they actually do put in the metadata because they know that it serves them as well, you know.
Yeah.
So they are pretty good at meta tagging things, making sure they're in relatively the right areas and stuff like that. So because they know, because they're invested in the system, which actually speaks to something that Lisa said earlier on about rules and, you know, don't be afraid to make rules. Well, actually, we're finding it's a lot easier to implement rules and to kind of say, look, guys, we need to work like this because they're already seen the value of having the system. So now that they've seen the value of it, they're seeing the value of actually if we do it this way, it's even better for us. So, I mean, I can probably talk to a little thing. So this is, I mean, to talk you through the evolution of our system, we literally started with very, very simple home pages. We tried to make things really easy for people to access stuff and try to make it easy for them to find what they want. So I'm looking for product documents and I need to know what languages we've got for this particular product. So I'm just going to go into product documents and then I can go through the subset categories. So, I mean, this is where we were and where we are now. It's a little overcomplicated, but we were literally product documents. Well, the two core ones we've got are things called data sheets, which are a legal requirement for selling in our industry, and user guides, which for very complicated products are actually incredible. People actually read ours, which is quite nice because I don't know about you, I throw most of my user guides that come in the box out. But yeah, and then we started with just the three core. That was 5 years ago. We've now obviously got much more in there. We have because we've got multiple brands and then we've got the internal branding as well as external branding. We've now classified that so that it's you've got branding internal, so that's when we support our colleagues and we have much looser, we've got fun ways of presenting ourselves for our colleagues, and then we've got the external branding. That's where you'll find templates for across the different brands that we've got, and then what else we got there. So what we've started to do is because everything on our website is now being powered from the system. Actually what we found was there was a really we never had publishing processes originally, and we had this real issue with documents, in particular with data sheets, which are a part of the buying journey. In a lot of places you have to have them for them to even consider buying your product. And what we had was where we had silo factories. We've got 8 or 9 factories globally now. So if one factory was updating their data sheet in English, the old process was you'd send an email to marketing all, and somebody would manually put that up onto the website. Because the way the websites were managed, they were all managed by different people, so they were all kind of locally managed. So then it would require them to remember that they got their email if they were traveling or anything, and then to manually do it. So at one point when we first started this, we had you'd have a version 21 on the UK site, and then you'd have a version 8 on another site, you know, and that was causing real problems. And then when you start going into your cross languages, it got even worse. What we then found was actually there was a way with our system that if we did the back end legwork, what you do is you update the document in, we embedded our links onto our website. And so this was actually a manual process where we exported all of the links for everything that we had. We removed any duplicates on Englishes and things like that. And then we embedded those onto the websites across the globe. If there was a language variant, that language variant would get embedded onto that website. And so what that means is that rather than having to manually email somebody remember to upload it, the person that's doing the work, which is quite often a designer or who doesn't actually manage a website, they just upload it as a new version onto the DAM, and that's automatically pushed out because the link stays the same. The document it talks to is what changes. And so that's how we manage all of our product documents on our websites now, are actually sourced from the DAM. And that was a game changer for us. It's been that in itself kind of was its return on investment, if you will, because and that was something we didn't know we could do when we started the system. We just wanted a library so we could see what we've got. Now, what it does is it's everything's pushed from the DAM now. And actually it's part of, we're going through a digital transformation, and what was a really proud moment was of all of the systems, because they looked to throw out everything, but they didn't have a single conversation about throwing out our dam, which was great, or changing the platform or anything.
Oh, well done. Well
Yeah,
done.
so it's just kind of like, yay. Because I think I would have, well, it would have been a challenge to change it all and things like that, but I'm glad we didn't, to be honest with you. So now what we're doing with our new website is actually we've integrated the dam into the system, so you don't even know to go and manually get the link and then send it to the team that are that actually manage the website. What they'll do is within the CMS platform, I think it's a CMS platform, or even the PIM, actually, what you could do is that you basically click on a thingy and it automatically takes you to a portal that is connected to the dam. So the only way to actually access content and serve it up to our website is going to be from content that's already in the dam now, which is great because it gives us oversight. It gives us oversight of what's there, of what's up to date, of what languages we've got, because we're a global company, so we need to know, okay, have we translated this? You know, we're looking at China now, and whether our dam works in China or not is another question, but that's China delivery. But we're looking at, okay, well, if we're going to start pushing in China, what documents have we got? Okay, well, let's go and find the English ones, translate them, put them into the system, and then at least they, you know, luckily our marketing team is in Hong Kong, so they can access all of this, but we'll probably end up batch pushing things out to China. But for everywhere else, it's been really helpful. We actually manage our translations through it as well now. Yeah, so it does a lot, and it's going to do even more. I mean, as you said earlier about internal document, we're starting to kind of put in structures, because we're looking at having this knowledge-based platform, which won't just be for our customers to get knowledge about the industry, to get knowledge about testing practices, about legal requirements and industry standards, which in the electrical field are ever-changing, and safety is a massive thing. And so it's also going to be helpful for educating and elevating our colleagues, because our colleagues, you know, are part of the industry. They're actually part of those conversations. They're part of the industry standards bodies. So what we're looking to do is, to have more internal content and have it for everyone. It's, you know, everyone's our customer is what we're looking at. Yeah. Great. So I don't know what else we've got on here. So this just shows how you can version it and some of our key metadata. One of the things we did on the metadata was, and it was maybe me being a bit cynical, but I was like, if you make it easy, there's more chance it will happen. Basically, if you make it a drop-down list, if you make it so that it's a dependent field, so that, you know, okay, well, I know this is a low voltage product, I'm only going to show up the low voltage list then. And that's how we segment our products internally anyway. So we tried to make everything as drop-downy, as pre-populated, so that also brings that consistency in, because we have multiple ways, you know, people would call things the same but different, if that makes sense. So if it's on a drop-down list, if it's a dependent field, if it's really easy for them to just click on it, there's more likelihood that they're actually going to do that work and put that metadata in, but also it also helps breed consistency in terminology across your group as well, because it's like that on the dam, okay, we'll start, the more you see it, the more it kind of ingrains into you. So it's really unhelpful when they start rechanging how we organise things in our company, but then actually it's quite easy to do, because you can actually go in and so what we did, if we're splitting this particular segment, low voltage, out into two subsections, well, we know that these products are all going to be in that section, so we can do the work to support that. We'll recategorize everything, and then what we do is, you know, then it's easy, instead of the team know about it a little bit as well, and it's a lot easier to get them through that change management, because we've done it there, so they kind of have to do it from there on in, and then the more they do it, the more it gets on board with them, if that makes sense. So this is the versioning, which was just our godsend, really, and it's brilliant. The other joy of it is if something's not quite right, you can step it back as well, which is really helpful. So yeah, and this just kind of, this is some of the back end stuff. It was quite funny. I used to joke that I became a graphic designer so I'd never have to use Excel again, and then I got into DAM management, and now I love Excel again. I don't know, you know, it's just like, oh, okay. So this is actually some of our working documents, because obviously when I started I knew nothing, absolutely nothing, and we started with this blank system, and it was in such a place where we were that actually what we did was I just got the designers and the core people who I knew owned like all of the product documents and most of the marketing documents. We just got them to buy hard drives, dump everything onto a hard drive and ship it out to us, because it was easier to manage it on that way. And what we had to do is, I mean, we had our supplier, our vendor, and most, I think all vendors are probably the same, that they have a really great team that walk you through the process of setting it up and helping to understand how it should work. And so it was, and having all of those hard drives together actually was really helpful, because it gave me insight into what other people categorized and how they kind of split out their products, their documents and things like that. So that also helped inform the system. But luckily for us, it was so new for everyone that it was really easy to get people on board, because they didn't have any preconceived notions of what it should be or anything like that. So it was, you know, and so then this is it now, which is a little bit, it's probably too complicated. It was actually more, one of the big things I did, one of the big mistakes I made was overcomplicating it at one point. So what I did was like, okay, well, if we wanted to think about getting our sales guys into this system, one of the issues we have is our sales guys are great, but they don't always understand the word embargo. And so, you know, they'd kind of like, if they see it, they get excited and want to share it with their customers, even if it's not ready to be shared. Like some of our products, because of the complexity of them, we can have the artwork ready, but then something will happen and it won't go to market for another 6 months to even a year. Especially if there's something that then implicates safety. That's a big one for us when you're collecting to live voltages and things like that. So we started looking at, okay, well, how could we lock down the system so that if a sales guy would come in, he would only see what he wanted to do. So I put in different kind of security measures and things like that. Split things out into more groups. So what we've got here is, so we've got 3 kind of real security levels, which is your role, your asset group, as we call it, which is your role can only see certain asset groups. And so I started splitting those out into like technical documents, legal documents, product documents, and then trying to assign those to various roles. And what it did was it actually made the system, it made things less visible to the people that should see it. And I think maybe it was because I hadn't done it properly, but I think what we found was actually simple was better for us, really. It makes it easy to manage, it makes it easy to update. So we stripped out a lot of them and went back to just final files. And then we've got this thing called unlaunched. Again, we're going to look at that in the long term. There's new ways and ways that you can deliver content to people without having to have them into the system now, which is what we're looking at doing.
So like through email or
through things like portals and embedded stuff. Right. Yeah. Okay. So our systems, and I think a lot of them, they come in with these customer, like you can have portals where you don't need a login, and you can completely control the data that's in there. So they don't need to have access to the actual system, but they can have access to content, even content that that probably isn't widely available. So what we're looking at is we've got an intranet. We're going to start looking at embedding content from the DAM there to serve our internal customers, and then it doesn't need any classification other than having the meta tag of internal. Do we have intellectual property rights on this? Because with our industry, what we have is you can, one of our colleagues will actually write this paper, but when you present it at these international forums, you actually give over your copyright to it. You give over your ownership of that content of that paper. It's part of being part of this prestigious industry conference, but it means that you can't actually share that paper with your customer, but you can share it with your colleagues to inform them on writing new papers. So that's what we're looking at doing, is having that stuff in there. Yeah.
Wow, well done.
Thanks.
Well done. I mean, what you are saying is that you actually have gotten buy-in and you've helped evolve Megger into sort of this digital company. And there's no company now that isn't digital. There's aspects of it everywhere. Now, how did you sell the idea of DAM? How did you get the buy-in to begin with?
It kind of sold itself for us. I mean, everyone was we were starting to, I think it was hand in hand with, we started to change, and this comes back to some of the talks earlier on, we started to change our internal culture and how we were working. So instead of being siloed, and this was from some leadership, let's start working as a whole rather than, as competing teams, so so the designers and the marketers started working more as a global company, as a team, and we actually started meeting. Prior to that, most of the marketers across the different sites and across different countries would never have any interaction with each other and would never meet. So it was the right time for us, I think, as well. I mean, our designers were starting to struggle to find assets. We were starting to struggle to find images. They were struggling to find product images to actually market our products. So when we presented it as, if you could go to this one place, log into it and find everything, they were just like, yes, that's what we need.
Idea.
So yeah, exactly. So it kind of sold itself. We were quite lucky in that thing, in that the team were ready. And I think one of the things was, but we spoke to the users first rather than anything. I think I think my boss had already gotten kind of a provisional pocket of money to put this aside. But I think if they weren't if the team weren't invested in using it, then there wasn't any point there's always point in doing it, but you have to then start selling it and working with them to help them understand. And I think that's the thing that we're finding now with putting in new processes. Like, we're going to have to put in new processes for our web images, because all of those are being sourced through the DAM, which is not how it's working at the moment. And so it's talking to them, it's communication, I think, at the end of the day, is, kind of explaining why this is important, how it's going to benefit you, how is it going to help your day, how is it going to help you in what you're doing, and how does it fit in with the long-term strategy. And I think the more that your colleagues and that see that, the more they're like, okay, I can adjust to this change in how I've got to work. We're doing it at the moment where we're having to put in publishing processes for our marketing documents. So like with the product documents, we're going to have to have key owners of documents, because that's something we didn't do initially, which maybe we should have done. But we've now got duplicates in some of our marketing collateral. Some of that is still structure and cultural related, but it's actually, let's start changing it now, and let's do it as, and I think because the system's been a success and because people see the value of it, they're starting to see the value of having these rules, if you will, or these processes, as I prefer to call it. Because if it's a process, it's not so much like you must do this, but it's like, look, this is the easiest way to do it, and we'll do the rest almost. So that's how we're kind of selling the change. But yeah, I mean, it was actually really easy to get the guys on board, because I think that they needed it. They needed this system. They needed to. It just made their lives easier. So that was a pretty easy sell.
You made adoption easy, right? I mean, when you said that you had them put them onto hard drives and shipped to you, I mean that was very easy for them.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's the thing that what we're trying to do is if you can say, look, this is going to make your life easier, then they're like, oh, I'm interested in that, rather than, oh, look, we've got to do this system because. So it's like, look, this just makes it easy for you. And that's how we're selling it and trying to make it as easy for them to do their jobs, to implement stuff. That was the problem with overcomplicating the system, was they had to use different profiles to upload it to get it to the right place. So actually we stripped those back so that actually you just chuck it in there and we'll go through once a week or once a month and make sure that it's in the right place if you don't do it. And that seems to be working a lot better now.